Welcome to the City Current Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we love talking about technology and entrepreneurship. And in this case, those worlds combine and we talk about robotics. We're honored to be joined by Evan Drumwright, CEO and co-founder of Dextrous Robotics. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thanks, Jeremy.
Absolutely. So a lot of amazing technology. We'll talk all about that, especially when it comes to the world of logistics. But give us a little bit of background on your end personally and what led you to launch the company. Let's start there.
Okay. So what led me to launch the company? Really simple, actually. I recall learning a long time ago that one of the three most stressful things that a person can go through is moving. And so I had this idea as I was going through my education in robotics that we could solve that problem. That was really what robots are supposed to be really good at, is moving really heavy things quickly. And so that led to the genesis of this company. And of course, we haven't started off with kind of personal moving, which is where that kind of idea was generated. But we are doing something that is solving this really important problem of getting people out of these kind of back-breaking labor jobs. And yeah, so that was the genesis.
There's a lot of cool technology when you talk about the robotics, and they have, kind of chopstick arms, and they can pull it together literally any size of package. And, you've got two sides and they come together, and then they can move it on conveyor belts. And so obviously without the visual aid, how do you describe the first generation of robotics?
I think you did a great job with it. The idea was really simple. You take a pair of chopsticks, which, if you've been trained to be able to use a pair of chopsticks, you know that you can pick things as small as a grain of rice, as large as an entire sushi roll. And you can do it even if that food is wet, if it's sticky, if it falls apart, if it's hard. Chopsticks work in all of those cases. And so we took that same inspiration and we built a robotic system behind it. And that is exactly it. Be able to pick essentially any size, shape, or material object and do it quickly.
How does it recognize, because there's, I look at it maybe kind of like infrared sensors, but how does it recognize, and obviously artificial intelligence plays a vital role in this now when you look at, where technology is headed to be able to enable this, but the difference between the size packages and being very precise on how it lines those arms up. Talk about kind of how it is able to perceive, the robotics is able to perceive the differences for the packages and what needs to happen.
Okay, so the really exciting thing, one of the catalysts that allowed us to start this company was just a very impressive amount of progress in computer vision over the past 10 years. And that's happened both on the hardware side. Really, really good 3D cameras have come out. So these are cameras that don't just capture color, but also capture depth from the camera as well. So we're actually able to figure out dimensions of things that the robot is going to perceive. And then the other aspect that has been incredibly powerful on the computer vision side over the past 10 years has been what we call these convolutional neural nets for being able to perceive images. So you take a color image and you figure out all of the different objects within that image. And our robot is able to do that. It's able to say, box, 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 poly bag, U.S. Postal Service mail bag, tire, et cetera. It's able to do that for the entire scene. So the robotic system is able to perceive and understand what it sees.
You all have launched a partnership, a study with the Armstrong Company, obviously very well known in the world of logistics. Talk about that collaboration.
Yeah, so Armstrong, like essentially every other logistics company that has to move things from point A to point B, has this really big problem of actually having people go in and do the backbreaking labor of unloading trucks. This has been a long-standing problem. It's been referred to as the holy grail of logistics. It's the task that has resisted automation the most. And the reason is because you don't have a factory-like environment in the back of those trucks. As soon as you open the door to the truck, you don't know exactly what configuration the packages are going to be in. And so Armstrong moves a number of materials packages, you can call them cases, out of these trucks that aren't sent on pallets, so they're floor loaded. And so right now what has to happen is somebody has to go in and pick each one of those things out. And we are applying our groundbreaking technology to be able to minimize the amount of that kind of backbreaking labor and also speed it up.
I think that's a good analogy because you hear when you're taking a flight, items may have shifted during the flight. So be very careful when you're opening up the bins and the overhead. And just to your point, when you talk about a truck that's filled with boxes and packages and things, everything shifts around. And so when you think about it from a robotic standpoint versus a manual labor, going in and being flexible. And that's exactly what you're talking about with the robotics, is being flexible and nimble and able to differentiate how things have shifted and be able to then move them out. And so, then reducing that risk for individuals having to lift those boxes and put the stress on their back. There's a lot of wins, I think, for this in the industry and obviously for us in terms of just what it means for the workforce. So talk about kind of that perspective of how you see this playing out for, cost savings on the risk management side, for, workers' comp injuries, lessening those, making it more efficient for companies. Talk about the wins, in other words.
Sure. So a number of wins. Here's the biggest one. Even as of 2023, we're no longer in the deepest part of the pandemic anymore. But even in 2023, it's very hard for companies to find the labor to do this job. We were told by actually Armstrong that when they first tried to get people to do this job through a temp agency, they would come out, see what was ahead of them, and then turn around and leave. And the job is just like that. It's hard. So it's hard to recruit for. It tends to cause injury, both as you're picking things up. And I mean, you're picking from tall trailers, so heavy things fall on you. It's just a job that nobody wants to do. And yeah, they're making money from it, but it's hurting their bodies at the same time, and they're not getting any skills out of it. So from that standpoint, you get a whole lot of wins for these companies that no longer have to figure out how they're going to fill these positions. Now, one of the big things that Dextrous is able to promise is not just that consistency of labor. So we aren't just allowing companies to bypass that problem, but it's also the scalability. Because one of the big challenges you run into in logistics is that it's seasonal. So if you're, say, FedEx and you need to scale up your workforce by 20, 30% over the holiday season, that results in additional burden. And by way of contrast, Dextrous has made it possible to be able to just add machines to solve that problem. So those are really where the values come in. And of course, we're always looking at how we can make these workers' lives better too, by not having to hurt them.
Yeah, and I think it's the complementary piece, just like you're talking about. So how does it work on your end? Because when you think about like year-round versus seasonal, like you're talking about, is it one of those where you partner with a company to place, DX1 is the robotic machine that we're talking about in this case, in their facility full time, and it's a purchase on their end? Is it a lease that they can do seasonally? Talk about the business model on your end.
Well, first thing I'll say is that we're very amenable to doing any kind of business model that the customer is interested in, because that's who we're focused on. We're focused on making their jobs easier. The easiest thing that we have found to do is to structure the business model based on usage. So this makes things very simple for us. We know effectively how much these customers are paying per item picked. And so we can price our robot accordingly. We can make it essentially about the same if we're trying to sell that consistency and scalability, or if we need to juice sales, we can cut it. And then, of course, we're able to balance all of that against our costs. But the key here, again, is just making sure that um, this is more flexible for the customer because they're not actually having to pay for people to stand around waiting on a truck to get it. They can use the robot as that volume is available.
You all are a Memphis-based company, but obviously what we're talking about, you have the ability to work with companies literally anywhere around the nation. And so talk about that side of being Memphis-based, but really nationally focused and, kind of the blend of all the best worlds, being in a logistics hub, but yet able to then scale that.
Well, we're in Memphis because this is the logistics capital of the US. It makes a whole lot of sense to be here. We can go, for instance, Armstrong is 25 minutes down the road. And that makes it really easy to scale our operations from the very beginning. But yeah, there's a whole wide world out there. The entire US and, of course, the world itself is doing this job all over. So we do want to be able to help customers nationally as well as globally. But we're located in Memphis, which puts us in close proximity to just about everybody's warehouses, distribution centers, and logistics hubs, all the big names.
What makes you excited as CEO, co-founder, when you look at the growth and trajectory already, but where things are headed? What makes you excited for the future?
What makes me excited is, again, being able to look at this not from the perspective of, oh, this is a cool toy. It's a robot, it's fun, it moves fast, it's exciting to watch, but that we're actually making people's lives better. That is what drives me, and that is what drives our company. Now, of course, we're also excited to be able to add value to our customers as well. But I'm very much focused on the human component and how we're able to take something that was just drudgery and turn that into skilled labor.
What's something that you've learned in the process of building the business that you would pass along as a bit of advice to other entrepreneurs?
Man, you just have to grind. There's no there's no replacement for hard work, and that's it. Like, you can have a great idea, you can execute it well, you're still going to grind. There's no getting around.
Absolutely. It goes back to the grit and grind in terms of the Memphis storyline and legacy and applying it to entrepreneurship. So how can we help? Obviously, raising awareness and knowing, what you all are doing, but how can the community help? Talk about investment opportunities. Obviously, you talked about, for those in the logistics world being able to partner with you, but how can we help?
First of all, we're continuing to look for additional partners that need help unloading their floor loaded containers and semi trailers. We're always interested in talking to folks in that space. Usually, especially if they're in the area, it can be a very mutually beneficial relationship. The other aspect is we're getting ready to grow. So we have proven the core technology at this point, and we're ready to capitalize on that. We're now seeking investors for our next round of funding. And anybody that is interested in being part of this technological revolution and also this huge market opportunity, it's a $150 billion market in the US alone, should get in touch.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at just the future of consumer behavior, where everything, especially coming out of the pandemic, has really shifted toward a lot of in-home delivery, a lot more around, logistics and being able to move goods literally around the world. And so when you're talking about the need for Dextrous Robotics, there's, a huge opportunity, I think, in terms of the future for this. So I agree in terms of a very bright, exciting future ahead for sure. So wrap up with where we can go to learn more, to get involved with Dextrous Robotics.
So dextrousrobotics.com is our website. You can email us through there. We're also have a presence on LinkedIn as well, and look forward to people getting in touch.
Makes it easy. Once again, the website is dextrousrobotics.com, DEXTROUS robotics.com. So Evan Drumwright, CEO and co-founder, thank you for all you and your amazing team do. Thank you for coming on the show. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you, Jeremy. Really appreciate it.